Less than 2 seconds after 8:15, on the clear, bright morning of August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. The pilots of the United
Days after the atomic attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan's Emperor Hirohito announced his country's unconditional surrender during the ongoing Second World War. Japanese civilians resident in Malaysia, Singapore, Africa's east coast, and other countries had suddenly found themselves under reigning enemies. Their safety lay only in going back home to Japan. But Japan faced a dilemma. Tokyo couldn't risk having Japanese ships setting sail from countries under occupation by the World War II victors. As a result, most Japanese civilians overseas were stuck in what the Japanese call a hostile land situation. There is a little-known fact about Delhi's Purana Killa, or Old Fort, and a small but significant role it played in Japan's dilemma. Its ramparts served as a shelter to 3,000 Japanese civilians who had been captured by Allied forces, primarily in Singapore. They first arrived in Kolkata and were then sent to Delhi. Yumi is a Japanese citizen who fell in love and married in India. Yumi is now part of an Indian family. She looks back at how her countrymen have struggled to overcome the horrific fallout of the atomic bombs on Japan.
I think there has been a huge change. Obviously, I was not born back in 1945, so I can't really say by firsthand how things were. But from what we have been told growing up, told by the grandparents or maybe parents who were born after 1945, there hasn't been a drastic change. Especially, Japan has lost the war, and I think that Japan as a country and people are so devastated. So they had to do a lot of rebuilding of the nation.
Dr. Surajit Sarkar, expert on mutation research, speaks with WION on the possible effects and causes which happened on that day at genetic level.
Just 2-3 days ago, one paper came where you can really edit the human embryos, right, by a mechanism called CRISPR-Cas. So you can really remove the bad gene, the mutated gene, and you can replace with the wild type one, right? But it's very, very premature to say that whether that will utilize at the mass level. But in principle, yes, right? We can repair or we can replace the mutated genes.
Over these past 7 decades, the world has grown increasingly capable of harnessing and utilizing nuclear power. But the potential of nuclear threats and consequences has also increased 1,000-fold. North Korea is seen as a rogue country that threatens with nuclear power to get its way around countries like the US. This even though the UN Security Council has imposed new sanctions on North Korea. Lieutenant General Hasnan comments on the renegade Asian country's strategy.
In the case of North Korea, it's a rogue state, which is not a part of any organization, any system, any mechanism. And that is why it poses a major threat to the world. Primarily, it is looking at the United States. It's looking at Japan as potential enemies. It's the control over it can perhaps we can assume is that of China. That is one country. But of late, we are seeing that even in the case of China, the kind of control which it had earlier, it doesn't seem to be evident even today.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, unfortunately, are the first chapters in the examples of nuclear war victims. The world can only hope that it stays as the last one.